Hi, everyone. This is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman. And tonight I am so excited about this one. And I have been asked about this so much. I guarantee you, over the last probably 3 or 4 months, we have just been like crazy talking about spiritual growth. I know a lot of in my classes, people are asking about it. I get asked about it all the time with my clients. So they're always asking about, like, what is spiritual growth and how do I grow and how do I do this and how do I connect to that energy? So we're going to talk about this a little bit, but I want you to understand, like, this subject is vast. It's huge. I'm going to answer your questions with this, but I want you to understand too, it's like, it's not just one thing. It's a lot of things. We're going to talk about it a little bit, and we may have to do another part of this, but let me do my opener and then we'll get started. Yay, we made it through. We made it through the promo. Hello, Miss Carmen. Hello, Miss Panther. I am so thankful y'all are here. We've got a great topic. I know a lot of people are really interested in this. If you're clicking in, make sure you say hi. And we're going to talk about spiritual growth. So this is one of those topics, like I said, it is huge. There are tons of people that have lots of questions about this. So I will tell you that there's kind of two ways to work on spiritual growth. One of them is like just growing naturally. And then I guarantee you that most people don't want to grow naturally. Once they get into it, it's like, I'm craving it. I want to do more and more and more and more. So even though people start out like, I just have a few questions, it becomes like this huge topic of like, wow, I didn't realize it was so expanded. But let me talk about this. Spiritual growth is all about, hello, Miss Chisholm, is like, I am, you are, everybody here, he, she, it, all of us are kind of all spiritual beings. And being true spiritual beings, it's kind of like the crazy way that I put it, and I know it's going to sound really creepy, is that we're a spiritual being. Inside of my spirit, inside of my body, I have a spirit. And hello, Miss Alda. It's like we've got that energy inside of us. But a lot of people are only seeing like the meat suit. This is the meat suit that I picked for this life. Someone else picked something maybe taller, thinner, younger, whatever it is, but that's the meat suit. This is the meat suit that I chose for this life. And a lot of times what people get caught up in is kind of just thinking that we are this meat suit, this human, this only having this one experience. And kind of really the beginning of spiritual growth is kind of starting to understand that it's more than just one thing. It's not just, oh, here it is, we get this. It's kind of opening up to kind of like, we are, for lack of better words, we are a human on earth, experience this, but we're doing it as a spiritual being inside. Our soul is what really is going to continue on. This body that I picked out will someday pass away, and it will be buried and all that kind of stuff. And people will cry a lot. I'm just joking. So it's kind of like, yay. But then we kind of get to move on. And our soul is kind of like that spiritual growth. The more we connect to the spiritual side of things, the easier life gets, the more things start connecting in, the easier life gets for everybody, especially you, because as you learn and educate yourself on this, even if you don't talk to your other family members, like you're like, shh, they don't get any of this, their energy is going to be upgraded because you're upgrading your energy. So it's kind of like, yay. So I kind of think that's kind of the best way to kind of put this into terminology. Kind of the best way to kind of combine both of these, kind of like this human side and this spiritual being side, is kind of really a great way to kind of move into kind of like, we live on earth. So we have like earthly rules that we have to understand. We have to abide by the rule of gravity. You have to abide by the different laws and different things. But it's one of those, we're still all this spiritual being inside. And that's what wants to grow. That's what wants to grow and connect us to everybody else. Like we have this requirement almost of like, I want to connect to other people. I want to make this connection with other people. And that's kind of the spiritual side of things. I think a lot of times, hello, Miss Lamb, is kind of one of the interesting ones is a few people kind of understand this to begin with. And it's one of those, as you kind of start your spiritual growth path, kind of like this journey on this, the people that are staying in like it's all about the material world and really always resonates with me is many years ago we had a friend and we helped take care of his kids for about a month or so after school. And every time you asked one of the kids what they wanted, they would be like, I want $1 million. Okay, that sounds like a great answer. And $1 million is going to like fix some issues, but it's not going to fix everything. And it's like, that's what kind of like becomes with this is like, people are like, oh, if I throw enough money at this situation, or if I throw enough, whatever it is, like if I have a bigger house, if I have a faster car, if I have this, if I have more clothes, if I have 10 more pairs of shoes than you, I'm more together or I've made it further than you. And kind of the spiritual growth side of that is like that's what you've chosen to purchase with your money, but you could also choose differently. But the more you stay attached to that material world side of things, the kind of the less your spirit is going to grow. It's just kind of the way it is because that material world is kind of just staying with our earthly human being side of us, and it's not allowing our spirit, our spiritual growth to even come around. Kind of like it's not going to even happen in this part. The more we really connect, like our whole side of like Earth is the planet that we're on. It's kind of like where we are, the universe, like connecting to universal energy, creator energy, whatever you want to call that, God, whatever that is, like connecting to that is going to make it easier. Carmen is saying, and it can make more issues than fixes. Yes, because what instead of opening up our spirit and kind of like, what does our spirit want us to do, or what do I feel led to do in this area? It's one of those like, I only want this. I only want that $1 million answer. I only want that. Boom. This is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I have to have. And it's going to fix everything. If I had enough money, it's going to fix everything. That is a very human side of things. And yes, having $1 million will fix some things, but it's not going to fix everything. Your spirit is still going to be like, okay, now you've done this. You've bought a house, you bought a car, you bought more clothes, you bought more shoes, whatever that is. But it's like our spirit is going to be like, I still require something. There's something out there that I really require, really connecting to. So that's kind of like, okay. So only when we embrace our spiritual side along with our human side are we going to kind of begin our spiritual growth or our spiritual growth journey, because it is a journey and everybody is on that journey. Some people are still at the start line, and those are the ones that are very in that materialistic world. But I will tell you that a lot of people that are like really kind of like, what can I do to better my world? What can I do to make this a better place? What can I do for other people? It's going to bring that energy more and more. But everybody's on this path. It just depends on where you are. We all have choices to make to kind of see that outwardly view, that kind of that materialistic view. Or embrace our spiritual universal view. Everyone has choices, and there's so many choices along this path. It is amazing how many choices we have in this path. Like how many choices do we have to open up to in this energy? That's going to be really important. And kind of staying aware of kind of noting like where you're at on your spiritual journey. And a lot of times, like you don't really notice it until you kind of look back and or you are around someone who's like at the starting line. You're like, oh, I get it. And it's kind of like when you're in fifth grade and you see a first grader, you're like, oh, they don't even know how to read yet, or they don't know how to whatever yet. Something that you've learned. That's kind of the way you look at everybody else. You're kind of like, okay, they haven't learned this part yet. And although you go, I still have a ways to go on this learning path, you realize like, wow, how far I've actually come. And usually that only happens, like I said, when you are around kind of other people that have that mentality of excuse me, of material items, or only money's going to fix every issue I have. It's not going to do that, I promise. Kind of I will tell you that kind of like the first stage, or the kind of the first area that we're going to look into, is kind of like we are all born into this completely materialistic world, and we start in this kind of like this crazy idea of things. Now, I have kids, and if you have kids, you're going to understand this, because a lot of times, like when my kids were younger, like say like my oldest son was like 6 months old, someone said, "Oh, my son's already rolling over and he's only 4 months." They start comparing each other. You know what I'm saying? It's like parents start comparing, like, my son rolled over at this age, or my son took his first step at this age. And they really are kind of just hanging on to that materialistic kind of like, this is better than you. My son did this before your son. My daughter walked before your daughter, or whatever it is. There's always this materialistic kind of like earthly creation of kind of like bringing this together. And so that's kind of like that stage one. And when you start kind of on that journey, that's where we all begin. It's really connecting us to our lower three chakras. That's kind of the interesting part. It's going to really dominate this beginning section of connecting us to our root chakra, which is we want stability, we want security, and we want our basic needs taken care of. That's all materialistic. Stability, I want a job that I know I'm going to get paid X number of dollars at, or my husband or wife has a job that makes this kind of money. It's going to make it so much easier. Security, I know that I'm safe, I'm secure in my location, I'm secure with my job. And then our basic needs, it's one of those, I have food in the pantry, I have food in the refrigerator, I'm not going to starve to death if I'm saying, if I don't cook tonight or whatever it is, or if I cook tonight, I still have more food. There's like I've got the basic necessities taken care of. And then we kind of move into that sacral chakra, which is all about the creative. And this kind of comes in with this creative energy, like creating children, creating a family, creating our own personal life, our own friends. And then we also kind of add our sexual center into this, because we want to make sure that usually at this point, we want to make sure that we're in a monogamous relationship with somebody else that's going to support, help us kind of get our stability and our security and our basic needs taken care of. And then we kind of bring in our solar plexus, which is at this point really only about our personal power. Like, what power do I require having at this time? Do I need to hold this boundary with someone else? Do I need to throw that stick back in the neighbor's yard because they threw it in my yard and it's not mine? Where is my personal boundary with this? And usually this can come in with like boundary, like physical boundaries. This can be work boundaries, like she's not supposed to do this, or she checked my email and she's not supposed to. So those personal boundaries with other people. And as long as you kind of grew up in a kind of like a normal childhood with loving, supportive parents, kind of living a great life, you're going to have a strong sense of like your divine energy. Like, you've got a connection, you have a great sense of who you are, you've got a great connection to earth. You're going to have those things because you're really going to be taught by your parents, usually, like, to fit in. Your parents will teach you, like, this is what you're going to do to fit in with everybody else. If you want to fit in kindergarten, you can't wear that crazy outfit or whatever else, you have to do this. There's a few parents that don't, but I will tell you that majority of them are like, this is what you have to do to fit into the world. If you want to fit in and have friends or whatever else, like, you have to fit into the world. And the more we get that kind of like, we have to do this to fit in, I have to do this to kind of do this. And always the image when I always think of that is when my baby sister was born, she always tied like hair ribbons on the side of her bikini outfit when she was a little girl. And at some point, like, it was okay when she was a certain age, but when she got to a different age, when she was about to start school, my mom would tell her, no, that's not cool anymore. That's not okay anymore. You need to fit in. You can't have this crazy personality. You can't have this, I love this kind of energy or whatever else. Like, you have to get to the fit in stage with other people. And usually that's what kind of like, a lot of people kind of get into, of like, we've got to fit in. And that energy usually keeps us in the materialistic kind of energy, this energy of like, what do I need to take care of? This root stability, security, basic needs, creative, sexual center, and our personal power. All of that is going to keep us in our in the materialistic world. Now, a few of us had some crazy childhood. Doesn't mean it bad or anything else. It's one of those, like, we could have like not so supportive parents or whatever else, or we could have crazy parents, which like, and abuse and all that kind of stuff. But when you have to kind of live in your ego, which is kind of the stage two, when you have to let go of like the fear of everything. And a lot of times this comes in when people have a lot of abuse in their childhood. It's kind of like that stability. There is no stability. Security, where's that? We don't even know what that is. Basic needs, like, I don't even know if I'm going to get dinner tonight. That kind of energy kind of brings us to stage two, when you're in a fear of losing something or not growing or not getting what you require. You have to kind of like, okay, now I have to dig myself out, and I have to find my own way through life. I can't just sit still and kind of like, okay, whatever happens. Nah, 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 nah. I have to really fight and pull my way out of this. And when that happens, a lot of times our ego starts to emerge. Like, I'm more important than you. If I have to choose between feeding me and feeding you, I'm going to choose me. And soon you realize, like, that is kind of like you are completely at the mercy of the people around you. It's one of those, like, you are literally at that mercy of people around you, of what's coming up. And a lot of times this is when we kind of begin to kind of like have to kind of overwork our fear, or kind of work through our fears of like, this isn't enough, or am I enough? Hi, Miss Jenny. It's one of those, like, kind of, you have to kind of work through that fear. You really do have to work through that fear on your own and find a way to get what you require. The requirements, like basic stability, security, basic needs met. Like, you're going to start like, I'm going to have to fight for this. And a lot of times, like, this is kind of one of those like war fightings or whatever else. Like, if it's more important that I have it than you have it, I'm willing to hurt someone else. And so it doesn't mean you have to hurt someone else. It's kind of like that energy of it. Like, I'm going to make this. So I think that's kind of one of those. I'll answer your question in a second, Jenny. It's one of those, like, kind of one of the things is kind of this energy is you have to be willing to fight. And as you kind of fight, you kind of leave that material world behind you and kind of really come into your own power, which is kind of the stage three of this. So Jenny's asking, what is my career path for spiritual growth? This is what we're talking about, is kind of like how we get there. So this is what we're talking about, is like, how do you do it? Hello, Miss Kathy. Of like pushing this energy in the right direction. So, kind of the stage three is kind of like overcoming that fear. You are going to create what you consider success in your life. What is that to you? Now, it depends on what your parents' definition was, or what you grew up in. Is like, how do you feel about your definition of success? It's one of those, a lot of times people realize early, like, I need to get an education if I want a better job. I've got to find a partner and make babies. That's going to make us a stable household. So a lot of times people are really fighting for that power of it, and they're striving for things that they're kind of like, I'm not sure why I need this, but I feel like this is going to get me the security. It's going to get me the stability, the basic needs met, so I can keep moving forward. And kind of one of those, just like fight or flight. Like, it's one of those, like, you got to fight for a lot of this and pull that energy up. I will tell you that a lot of times, like, when you start your career in your family, the less stable your childhood was, the harder usually your career is. The more stability that you're willing to work for, the more stability you're willing to bring into your life. I've noticed this not 100% of the time, but I will say it's probably like 70% of the time. Usually people that had a harder childhood are going for jobs that are very stable. They're not going to just be anything. They're not going to want to be an RN or a vet tech or whatever else. They want to be a doctor. That's what I'm talking about. Like, they're going to be like, I want that kind of money. I want to get that kind of success. And a lot of times what that does is kind of keep your view really, really tight. And it's moving only towards this materialistic energy for a period of time. And then it's one of those, at some point, they will hit that power stage and just kind of like, okay, I've created success. I've made this. I've kind of wanted this to kind of happen for me. And then they kind of start pulling that off and realizing like, I've had security my whole life. And you're like, really? Because you grew up in a very unsecure place. And they're like, but I've always felt secure. And that's when they're getting in touch with their own like spiritual energy with this, their spiritual side, their soul energy is telling them, yes, this is exactly where we needed to be. This is exactly what we needed to do. This is exactly where we wanted to go. So kind of our choices become kind of like, are we going to further our spiritual growth, or are we going to stay in the material world? And that's usually when we start to hit it and we start scrambling again. Like, here we go. We've got to pull this energy up of, I want this energy to kind of bring in this spiritual growth kind of thing. And like I said, when people have that kind of like that traumatic ones, I usually see them like, once they get on the spiritual path, they're kind of like, here we go. They want to run at it. Not that everybody doesn't. I'm just saying I've noticed that they've been really like, we've got to go. And because what they understand is the power has always been with us. We've always had the power. We've always had that requirement for power. And we've always had that point of power with us. And the more we understand like how to use that power, and the only way to do that is kind of work our spiritual gifts. Our spiritual growth is going to kind of come into play, and our spiritual gifts are going to add to that. And we are going to be able to kind of like, okay, this job isn't secure. I need to change companies, or I need to make my own company. I'm not going to wait for these people to hold my position anymore. I'm going to get past this. I'm going to keep moving forward. And as they do, it's kind of, they start opening up to that kind of like that energy of, I'm ready to make some changes. I'm ready to move forward in this energy, and holding on to that kind of like, yes, I'm going to make the changes that I require. As they keep connecting to creator energy, they're going to feel more and more empowered. And a lot of times, like, that's kind of one of the interesting ones. The more you connect into creator energy, the more you really do want it more and more. It's kind of like there's a peace in it. There's a tranquility in that energy. There's like basic needs. Like, you don't even worry about like basic needs anymore. And you're like, I just know it's going to show up. I just know whatever I require is just going to show up exactly when I require it. All of those things are just going to start falling into place because you start believing in the creator energy and the creator energy in you. And that's really your spiritual growth. One of the things I will say is kind of the next one is kind of, we get into the stage of giving. And a lot of times what we understand is when we help someone else, we not only help ourselves. And it's kind of like, at first when I tell people this, they're kind of like, what? It's true. When you step out of your comfort zone and you help someone else, if you kind of like, okay, I only have so much money, and I'm going to buy the neighbors, they need some cat food, or they need bread, or whatever it is, and you go out of your way and you buy something for someone else that they really couldn't repay you, it's kind of like you get that energy in return. And then all of a sudden things just start showing up for you. It's like, as you give things away, you are also releasing your hands. If you're holding on to money so tight that money can't come to you, it's one of those like, you're never going to get any more. Couldn't get it in there. If your hands are like this, you could not get another penny or dime in there. But when you open your hands, it starts coming back in. Positive feedback cycle. It starts coming back to you more and more. So that's kind of the fun, quirky part of this, is you start to realize when I give things away, I start getting that energy back. And then you kind of get addicted to giving things away because you're kind of like, ooh, I don't wear this shirt anymore. Let me gift this away. And then it's not like you're waiting for it to come in, but you're just kind of like, I know there's going to be something. I know there's going to be something cool that's going to happen because I did this. And that's kind of the fun, cool part about it. And that's kind of one of those, you kind of add that law of attraction in there. When you've got that great energy of like, I'm going to gift this away and something else better is going to come in its place. And you just realize like, whatever it is, it's going to just show up and it's going to be right in front of me. It shows up faster than you think. And that's kind of that fun part. Carmen says, what goes around come around. And it really is. Now, I will tell you that kind of the energetic kind of part of this to really understand is like what you give out, you get back. And it's kind of one of those amazing energies of when you bless somebody else, you get blessed. Maybe not in the same thing. Maybe you gave your neighbors a gallon of milk. You may not get a gallon of milk in return, but maybe that's not what you required. Maybe there was something else you required. Maybe you're leaving work the next day and you get a flat tire, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this person shows up and helps you fix your tire. That's what you required. So you didn't get it, like you didn't get the same thing back to you. You got something that you really required. And that's the fun part of this, is kind of like, what's going to come at me? Where am I going to be with all of this? That's kind of like the energy of it. But what you give out, you are going to get back, but it's not a balance thing. What you give out is going to be like this, and what you get back is going to be astronomical. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, crazy. And the more you do that, the more you get addicted to it. And it's kind of that just gentle energy. And that's kind of that whole creator energy. When I give something away, I'm going to get something in return. But it's usually not that kind of energy. You're just kind of like, I'm going to, like, I don't require this shirt anymore. I'm going to gift it to someone. And so then someone else will have this beautiful orange shirt that they get to wear and feel cool in. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're going to find something else that's going to replace that or change something else. It's like, well, maybe you didn't need a shirt. Maybe you needed a pair of pants. Or maybe your neighbor's like, I'm not using this purse anymore. Do you want it? And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is the most amazing purse ever. So you're going to get something, kind of that energy. And that's kind of where we kind of like, yes, where we go with this energy. I'm going to try to finish up this one little thing, and then we're going to, we're getting close to time. So kind of one of the things is as you kind of level up and you realize, a lot of times people say on your spiritual growth, your ego is bad. Your ego is not bad. Your ego, listen to my words, your ego is not bad. Your ego is not bad. Listen to my words. Your ego is not bad. Holding on to your ego or being dominated by your ego, that's bad. Allowing your ego to kind of balance everything out. You are important, but you're just as important as everybody else. It's not like, oh, I'm the only one that's important. That's kind of that balance energy. No expectations, but you get super blessed. That's kind of the fun part, is like when I give something away, it's one of those, like, that's kind of the fun part. Like, okay, where is it kind of, where's my blessing coming in? What is that going to be kind of like? Ooh, this is interesting. And a lot of times I'll think about it when it first happens, and then I'll just kind of like, okay, creator, whatever you decide, that's going to be it. And I just let it go at that point. And then when it comes back, and I'm like, ooh, this is special. This is different. I wasn't expecting this. That's kind of the fun part of it. Is kind of like, you don't expect it, and like, here it shows up on your doorstep. Expecting, like when you're expecting something in return, that's the negative energy of it. That's staying in your ego way too much. But when you're kind of like, okay, I gave this away, I blessed somebody else, and I'm going to get a blessing in return, and I'm going to leave that to creator energy to find that for me, and I'm not going to worry about it. Like, that's up to him. That makes life so much easier. We always have opportunities to make changes and updates. And when we hold on to things that are negative and everything else, it keeps us in the material world. And that's kind of just the basics. We're just existing at that point. And it doesn't matter how much you make or what you do for a living. It's one of those, it could be that like you make several $1 million a year, or you make $1,000 a month. It doesn't matter. Your growth is your growth. And there is no, oh, the person who makes a couple of $1 million a year is further along. Usually they're not. I will tell you, more often than not, they're not as far moving down that spiritual journey as someone who's barely making ends meet. I know that seems like interesting. It's like, but I will tell you that everybody has been asking for this, and this comes in, a lot of this comes in because we have a lot of planetary energies kind of pushing our spiritual growth right now. We've got Chiron, we've got Jupiter, we've got Pluto, we've got a lot of this energy out there in play that is kind of coming back into that spiritual growth. And so a lot of people are asking those questions like, how do I grow spiritually? How do I make some changes spiritually? And it's kind of the basic understanding is just to understand what is spiritual growth. So that's why tonight we're talking about spiritual growth. There still is more to cover. I will have to do it another Thursday Night Live, maybe sometime in May, because we've got April already scheduled out. But maybe in May, that will be a fun one to kind of pick up another spiritual growth in there. But I guarantee you, if you have questions, make sure you post them. I will make sure I answer those in the next one, or I will answer them online. I'm so thankful that y'all joined me this evening. I so appreciate it. I love really having fun with you guys, and I love the teaching y'all lessons. I think that's so much fun. I never thought I would enjoy teaching as much as that, but I really do. And I didn't even get a chance to start with my angel cards. I'll have to do those next time. Okay, guys, I thank y'all so much for joining me tonight, and I know we'll be talking again soon.